monarchy means in today's world. Also, the other big story that has importance for India and the world, Iranian women are fighting the hijab on the streets. Is there a message for the Islamic world? We'll look at that too, but there's plenty ahead, including some big breaking news. But first, the 9 headlines at 9. The end of an era. The United Kingdom bids a final farewell to Queen Elizabeth II. She will be laid to rest near her husband Prince Philip. World leaders gathered to pay tribute in one of the biggest state funerals ever. Communal clashes break out in Leicester. Saffron flag outside temple torn by mob. Third such instance since August 28. Indian High Commission demands that all those involved be arrested and action be taken. Big political fight breaks out in Punjab over reports of Bhagwant Mann being deplaned in Frankfurt. Congress and Akali seek inquiry from Civil Aviation Ministry. AAP says reports false. No confirmation on whether Mr. Mann was indeed drunk. Karnataka Congress Chief D.K. Shivakumar is before the Enforcement Directorate again, questioned for 5 hours in a money laundering case. Congress calls it political vendetta. The move comes ahead of the Bharat Jodo Yatra reaching Karnataka next week. The Trinamool Congress passes a motion in its West Bengal Assembly claiming the centre is abusing the enforcement agencies. Mamata Banerjee says it's not Prime Minister Modi but BJP politicians who are behind the misuse of the agencies. 3 accused in the Chandigarh MMS scandal sent to 7-day police custody. Hostel warden also suspended. Jacqueline Fernandez's questioning by the Delhi police underway for 7 hours and counting. The actor is being grilled in connection with the 200 crore Sukesh Chandrasekhar con scandal. Women in Iran cut their hair, burn hijab to protest the death of a 22-year-old woman in custody. Iran police calls the death unfortunate. The protests are now going viral across the world. And the Bengal governor finds himself in a bizarre limelight hogging act. Governor Ganeshan pushes Durand Cup winner Sunil Chetri in a desperate bid to ensure his photograph is in the frame. But the big story that's breaking at the very top, Shashi Tharoor, Congress MP from Thiruvananthapuram, is set to contest the Congress President poll. Tharoor has conveyed his decision to Congress President Sonia Gandhi. He apparently told Mrs. Gandhi he hoped to emerge a consensus candidate. Sonia Gandhi reportedly said anyone is free to contest the Congress President and significantly said there will be no official candidate from the Gandhi family. So effectively, meanwhile, Ashok Gehlot also is set to file his nomination, we are told, by the end of the month, post the 26th of September. So it appears that we could now have a contest this time for the Congress President's post, which, remember, Rahul Gandhi vacated in 2019. Shashi Tharoor versus Ashok Gehlot for Congress President seems quite likely. Maushmi Singh is on the Bharat Jodo Yatra. She's in Kochi at the moment, tracking that Congress Yatra. Is it now apparent, Maushmi, that no one from the Gandhi family will contest or support any particular candidate, but will allow there to be an open election, possibly Shashi Tharoor versus Ashok Gehlot?
Rajdeep, it was very clear in the presser when Rahul Gandhi in fact said that he had clearly decided what he wanted to do, and he never did say that he was going to contest the elections. That was considered in fact an indicator that Rahul Gandhi will not be contesting the polls, and that's why you see this is a culmination of that Shashi Tharoor will now be contesting the elections for the president's post. Even here in Thiruvananthapuram, when we had asked him, it was neither an ikrar or nor an inkar, and just a faint smile. So Shashi Tharoor gets a nod from Sonia Gandhi. We know of that. We also have learned that Ashok Gehlot, who was being pitched as a consensus candidate before Sonia Gandhi went abroad, she had spoken to Gehlot about taking over the reins of the party. But Mr. Gehlot was a bit reluctant about it, Rajdeep. But now we've learned that Ashok Gehlot could also file his nominations in the Navratra period. That really means that a contest is on the cards,
right,
and the suspense finally over who will contest the polls, whether Rahul Gandhi will be or not
right,
be president, is almost over.
Okay. Maushmi Singh, remember the notification is on the 24th of September. So we'll wait and see what happens then. But Ashok Gehlot versus Shashi Tharoor now appears a possibility. Interesting contest if that happens. Appreciate your joining us there, Maushmi Singh. Meanwhile, the other big breaking news coming in at this moment. The High Commission of India in London has condemned the communal violence in Leicester, which saw over the weekend clashes between groups, Hindu and Muslim groups. We strongly condemn the violence perpetrated against the Indian community in Leicester and vandalization of premises and symbols of Hindu religion. We have strongly taken up this matter with UK authorities and sought immediate action against those involved in these attacks. We call on the authorities to provide protection to the affected people. So that's coming in after that Leicester clash. The Indian government is calling on authorities to protect the affected. These clashes took place over the weekend in London. The High Commission of India slamming these clashes where groups allegedly removed, as you can see there, the saffron flag being removed. So who these groups were, more details will come out. But this is clearly unacceptable, says the Indian government, and have sought action against all those involved. Now, all of this, of course, coming when the real focus in the United Kingdom was on the state funeral, a kind that has never been seen in recent times. The United Kingdom bid farewell to the Queen, Queen Elizabeth of 70 years, a grand state funeral being accorded to Queen Elizabeth, the first such state funeral since the one given to Winston Churchill 6 decades ago. The funeral service was held in Westminster Abbey in the morning. From there, the coffin was first taken to Wellington Arch in a procession that was marked by gun salutes. Later, the coffin was taken in a hearse to Windsor Castle, and then, of course, there was a chapel service. The burial, which will take place shortly, will be a private affair. I'm now joined by Jonathan Gilbert, live from London. Jonathan, we're reaching the final stretches of what's been a very long day. The kind of crowds that have come, is this unprecedented in recent times in terms of a state funeral?
Well, yes, absolutely unprecedented. Obviously, as you rightly point out, we've not had a funeral on this scale since that, indeed, of Winston Churchill all those years ago. I myself attended the funeral of the Queen Mother exactly 20 years ago, and that was a fairly substantial affair, but absolutely nothing to compare with this whatsoever. I mean, you can just see behind me here, I think, just the last dregs, if you like, of the enormous crowd that attended here. I'm standing here, incidentally, outside Windsor Castle, where the committal ceremony, as it's known, is currently underway. You may be able to hear the choir. They're even singing through the loudspeakers to the few members of the public who've stuck around to see that through to the end. But there were literally tens of thousands of people here today. But that pales into insignificance compared with the scenes in central London around Buckingham Palace, around the Palace of Westminster, and of course Westminster Abbey, where the numbers were put in the hundreds of thousands. I wouldn't be at all surprised indeed if the number tops 7 figures when the final sums are done. So yes, an absolutely staggering spectacle and unlikely to be witnessed by any of us within our lifetimes.
Jonathan Gilbert, appreciate your joining us there from London. Those are live pictures that you're seeing at the moment of the chapel service, which is still being conducted. We're raising the question right at the very top, is the empire dead? Long live the monarchy? Does the monarchy still endure? Why is Britain obsessed with the monarchy? Is the monarchy still relevant to the Commonwealth of Nations, including India? These are questions we'll raise at the moment. Dr. Isaac Mathai is joining me now. He's the founder and medical director, Saukya, but interestingly met King Charles and the Queen Consort Camilla only yesterday. So he knows, he has an intimate connection with the royal family. Farrukh Dhondy, author and columnist for many years, has written on these issues. Edward Luce, US National Editor of Financial Times, Washington, D.C. Appreciate all of you joining us. Let me come to you first Isaac Mathai, since you met the family personally and King Charles. You want to tell us about how the royal family is seeing all that has happened in the last 2 weeks?
It was very nice to meet with the King Charles and the Queen consort. It was in her residence. I went and met with them because as a physician, I am looking after some portion of holistic consultation with them for the last several years. So it was nice, but I surprisingly even became king. There is no change at all in their behavior or approach towards you. They are as usual, very courteous and very nice and very polite. And I congratulated as well as convey my condolences of me and our family and Saukya and Bangalore, Karnataka, all that to them. And they have always have very fond memories of India, and they love India. Both of them love India, and they won't lose any opportunity to visit India anytime.
You know, I just want to tell our viewers, holistic healing is what Dr. Mathai does, and King Charles has come to Saukya a couple of times. Am I correct?
The Queen Camilla, she had been to Saukya 8 times in 10 years, and King Charles came one time because of security and so many reasons. It's not that easy for him to come and spend a week in a public place like that. But he was come, and then I'm consulting on a regular basis.
Very interesting, an angle that many people perhaps don't know, that Queen Camilla and King Charles have been coming to Saukya in Bengaluru. But Farrukh Dhondy, author, columnist, are we making too much of the monarchy? Does it have any relevance, particularly to the Commonwealth, to us here in India? All this spectacle that we've seen through the day, how should we see it? As nostalgia rather than see it as any real relevance to the world today?
Well, first of all, you ought to understand that there isn't a monarchy in Britain. There is royal family and there is royalty. Ever since Oliver Cromwell chopped off Charles I's head, the monarchy has lost its power to do anything significant. And even through Victoria's reign, we saw a complete disappearance of the power of the monarch, or of the queen, the titular head of the empire. Even though she called herself the Empress, the real power, for instance, in India, was in the hands of the Viceroy and the Council in Calcutta and then in Delhi, and not in the hands of Victoria at all. She couldn't even nominate her own servant as a knight when she, Abdul Karim, when she wanted to. They didn't allow her to do that. So what we're seeing today is a tribal expression of a loyalty to continuity of the British nation. And that's about it. When you say the Queen is dead, long live the King, God save King Charles III, what you're seeing is a symbolic continuity in Britain's feeling about itself, in Britain's nationalism. As far as its relevance to the Commonwealth is concerned, there is absolutely none. Of course, delegates from all over the Commonwealth and delegates from America and President Macron and President Biden, they all turned up to the funeral to show their respects for a significant, great country. But as far as the monarchy is concerned, as far as royalty is concerned, they have no connection with these countries. They can do symbolic things like, cut ribbons at dog shows or go to the horse races or whatever they do as symbolic heads. They have absolutely no power and no significance for the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth might be significant in Liz Truss's prime ministership, because after Brexit, Britain is looking for partners in trade all over the place because it has really suffered from leaving the European Union. As far as trade and imports and exports are concerned. So they will press, the government will press the Commonwealth, and they might use Charles to say, make a state visit to India, or a state visit to Pakistan or to Barbados or wherever, so that we can cement trade relations. But that will be at the behest of the Foreign Secretary and the Prime Minister.
So you're saying very, very limited powers, purely symbolic in nature, almost a symbolic continuity. Ed Luce, do you agree with that? That what we've seen today is a symbolic continuity, a sense of British nationalism, but beyond that, very little else?
I think that's about right. I mean, you must remember that the tradition of continuity with the British royal family, as I think Farouk was sort of indicating, is one of change and adaptation to changing circumstances. And so it's gone from being an absolute monarchy 400 or 500 years ago to being a purely symbolic monarchy, not quite a monarchy, not quite the bicycling bourgeois monarchies that you see in Scandinavia and the Netherlands that have really downgraded. But I suspect there's going to be a lot of pressure on Charles to downgrade some of the sort of scale of pomp and circumstance around the royal family in what is a time of quite great economic austerity in Britain, and much worse to come, by the way, this winter. So the test of whether that continuity is going to involve some change, some trimming down, I think will come with Charles's coronation next year. Will it be this grand golden coronation you saw for his mother in 1953, or will it be a more modest Scandinavian style one? And I suspect he has preferences, and he's argued over many decades for slimming down what they call the civil list. That's the number of royals who get money from the taxpayer. He's successfully argued to shrink it. And I suspect he's going to, mindful of history, mindful of the adaptability of the institution he now heads, he's going to want to slim it down some more. As regards the Commonwealth, look, there are 14 countries left with the British monarch on its coins as its head of state. There were probably 50 when the Queen became Queen. That's also part of continuity, that people drop the British monarch as their head of state. It's a totally natural thing to do. I'm surprised there are as many as 14 countries left that still keep the British monarch. And I suspect that rate of decrease will continue quite steadily in the years ahead. It just doesn't seem normal for a country, say, the other side of the world, like Australia, or the other side of the Atlantic, like Canada, or many Caribbean, West Indian nations, to have what is a foreign head of state as your head of state. So, I don't even think that will signal any great disruption. It's a totally normal thing. And if I were Australian or Jamaican or whatever, I would certainly want my own head of state.
But then how do you explain, Ed Luce, this spectacle that we've seen over the last 10 days? This grand...
There's a flower of the...
How do you explain the spectacle, Ed Luce? Because does that suggest an affection for Queen Elizabeth, quite distinct from any special affection for the royalty?
Yes, I think it does. And look, a sort of interesting factoid occurred to me today. When she was born in 1926, so 21 years before India's independence, the world's population was 2 billion. Today, 2.5 billion watched her funeral, more than the number of people alive when she was born, in what is amongst the largest television audiences in history. This reflects, I think, affection for her, for what was a very non-flashy, non-showy, quite in her own way, modest person, in spite of the sometimes absurd monarchical trappings around her, that there was an affection. And there's also, we talk about nostalgia, but funerals are about looking back. And 70 years on the throne, beating Queen Victoria, beating all the Georges and all the Charleses and Edwards and all the others who've been on the English throne for 1,000 years, and beating, I think, every single other living head of state or head of nation, other than the Dalai Lama, who of course became the Dalai Lama during the Second World War, is quite an extraordinary feat. And so it marks, it's a punctuation mark in history. There is no empire left. There hasn't been for a very long time. But she was the last monarch who really came to adulthood whilst there was an empire. And so I think this closes the final sort of trappings
by the grace of God,
on that era.
of the United
Let me have one final question to you, Farooq Dondi. In India, there's much talk about decolonization. You've seen roads being renamed, roads that were seen to be linked in a way to colonial rule, to the Raj. Do you see that process of decolonization now unstoppable in a way? And does the Raj, in a way, does the royal family have to reach out to India in a way, apologize, let's say, for a Jallianwala Bagh, or make that kind of step which convinces India that the royal family, in a way, is reaching out to the Indian people?
I don't know if the Indian people will ever have the kind of reverence that the British people themselves have for the monarchy. And as far as, changing the names of places as concerned, some names persist because memory persists. For instance, a lot of people still call Chhatrapati Shivaji Station Victoria Terminus. It was always called Victoria Terminus, and sometimes it's still called Boribandar. And so changing the name depends on the memory and the affection that people have for it. Of course, names, history does erode itself because as time goes on, new people come to power and they want to wipe out the bad memories of before. That has happened in the case not only of the empire, but even of Muslim rulers of which the present party doesn't approve. For instance, Aurangzeb Road.
Right.
But I don't think that India should start wiping out its own history in that way. Naming one road from Dalhousie Marg to Nehru Marg or whatever is fair enough. But, trying to alter the history of India is unfair to future generations and unfair to the view of what kind of nation we are.
Let me leave it there. Farooq Dondi, Ed Luce, Mr. Mathai, on this day when the world has come together to mourn Queen Elizabeth II, for, if not for any other reason, the sheer continuity and the stability that she provided her nation and indeed, in a way, the world around her. I appreciate your joining me here on the news today. Thank you very much for joining us on that story. Those are still live pictures that are continuing there from London. Let's move, though, to another story which, in a way, has an India connect. Protests breaking out in Iran after the death of Mahsa Amini, a 22-year-old woman. Amini was arrested by the country's so-called Hijab morality police for improperly donning the hijab, as she had not completely covered her hair. Iranian women are protesting by chopping off their hair, burning their hijabs, and taking to street protests. Take a look at a move that is being seen across the world as a message that enough is enough.
Chopping off their hair, burning their headscarves in the streets. This is the movement against the hijab that has gripped Iran. And what started this campaign by women is the horrific death of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini at the hands of the morality police. Assaulted and killed for not wearing a hijab, Mahsa's demise has sparked a ferocious movement by women for change. No crackdown by forces stopped them. Security forces injured some of the peaceful protesters in Kurdistan, but people of Singhez and Sanandaj took to the streets with a message, "We are all Mahsa Amini." Women were seen removing their headscarves to make it clear that the imposition of hijab will no longer be tolerated. Some protesters were even seen cutting and chopping off their hair in protests. Hundreds of students also gathered at the Tehran University. Men and women together were seen marching and chanting a simple message of woman, life, freedom. The protest has put the focus firmly on how Iran has regressed from before the Islamic Revolution, when women roamed freely, wearing whatever they wanted, to today, where the price for not wearing the hijab could be death. Bureau Report, India Today.
What is the message that's coming out for and from Iranian women? Will these women across the Islamic world now join this fight against hijab? Has the time come to ensure that hijab is not mandatory? It should be freedom of choice. My first guest who's joining me is Bangladeshi author in exile, Taslima Nasreen, who's often spoken out on this issue. Appreciate your joining us, Taslima. Iranian women burning hijab, scenes that we've not seen in that country for years, many cutting their hair. Is there a message you think they're sending out to the wider Islamic world?
Yes, of course. And I'm so happy. It's so amazing. It's a beautiful scene that they are burning their hijab, headscarf, and they're cutting their hair in protest of compulsory hijab. So it was very important for the world, for all Muslim women, because we all know that hijab is a symbol of oppression, suppression, denigration, and humiliation of women. So women are protesting against the compulsory hijab in Iran. So I think that that women who are forced to wear hijab in other parts of the world should also burn their hijab and protest against the hijab system, which is actually very bad for women.
But while many say, Taslima, as you say, that the hijab is a symbol of oppression, there will be others who've argued that it is an essential religious practice. Should it be left, therefore, to women at the end of the day, whether they want to wear the hijab or not? That should be the central principle. Whether in Bangladesh, Iran, India, anywhere, women decide, not anyone external outside the women community, outside individual women.
Yeah, people who want to wear hijab, they should have the right to wear hijab. But people who do not want to wear hijab, they must have the right to, not to wear hijab. But in Iran, every woman has to wear hijab, which is very bad. Actually, even though we say that hijab is a choice, but it is not actually a choice. Most women wear hijab because they are forced to wear hijab. Not only some are forced to wear hijab by their parents or their family members, and some women wear hijab because they were brainwashed since their childhood that they have to wear hijab.
No, you're saying brainwashed, and then the question comes, as in India, where there are women who are saying it is their decision, that they have a constitutional right if they choose to wear the hijab. So how do you decide if a hijab is being worn by a woman by force or choice? Are you saying there is no choice that they have?
It cannot be a choice. Normally the men ask women to wear hijab. Men, they don't wear hijab. It is women, they have to wear hijab. Most women, they're forced by their parents because, and some women are, they're afraid if they do not wear hijab, they will be beaten up. They will be, they will be harassed by men. So they wear hijab in fear. And also some women wear what I said before, that they are brainwashed. But, in school, in secular school, I don't think that anybody should wear.
But we are seeing
religious outfits.
But we are seeing, Taslima, interestingly, some element of reform even in Saudi Arabia. Now we are seeing these protests in Iran. Do you believe that what Iranian women are doing today, the rest of the Islamic world will do tomorrow? or do you believe that the clerics will eventually fight back, the fundamentalists will fight back against those who challenge them in any way?
They will do. They will, force women to wear burqas or hijab in other Islamic countries because, hijab is not anymore religious outfit or religious clothing. It is a political hijab. So political Islam, want women to wear political hijab. But many, many women, thousands of women, actually millions of women in the Islamic world do not like to wear hijab. They will protest against hijab because these Iranian women, many women are encouraged by Iranian women's protest. And it is so beautiful that they burn their hijab. So they are courageous. I salute those courageous Iranian women.
Interesting thoughts there, Taslima Nasreen. You suggest that the hijab is in a way a direct relation to the rise of political Islam, and you're saluting the women, as we all are, for fighting back. I appreciate you joining us there on the news today, Taslima Nasreen. Now, remember the protests against the hijab, a compulsory mandatory wearing of hijab in Iran, are taking place at a time when students from Karnataka are fighting their battle in the Supreme Court, saying they have a constitutional right in this country to wear hijab. The hearings have been continuing for over a week now. Anisha Mathur, our Supreme Court correspondent, gives us the gist of the arguments that are being made in the court. Listen in.
Freedom of religion, right to choose, and right to privacy and dignity of a woman. All of these are the constitutional principles on the basis of which the petitioners have argued in the Supreme Court that it is their fundamental right to wear a hijab to school, which is being violated by the Karnataka government. Added to that is the question of whether a hijab is an essential practice protected under Article 25 or is it a cultural practice under Article 29. All of these arguments have played out before the Apex Court in the last 7 days. And today, Senior Advocate Dushyant Dave also added the factor that the syncretic culture of the last 5,000 years has allowed peaceful coexistence in India despite the turmoil across the world. The matter is now set to continue on Tuesday. In New Delhi, this is Anisha Mathur for India Today.
Okay, so that's really where the arguments are taking place in court. Do women have a constitutional right in this country to wear a hijab even in educational institutions? Should hijab be at all mandatory in any other part of the world is, of course, what is being argued in Iran and beyond. Joining me now is Saida Falak. She is with the AIMIM, the Hyderabad-based party. Zakia Soman is women's rights activist who was one of the few voices who initially emerged against the triple talaq system that eventually was abolished. Also, hopefully joining me will be an activist from Iran, Masih Alinejad will join me, hopefully. We'll try and connect with her. But let's get a sense from you, Saida. You're seeing these images that the world has been seeing over the weekend coming in from Iran, women burning their hijabs, cutting their hair. Taslima Nasreen says a message is being sent to the entire Islamic world that women have the freedom of choice. Your view?
See, what happened in Iran with that 22-year-old girl is wrong. But what is happening in India is also wrong. In Iran, they have their own rules, their own laws. And I think our country should, and our laws, our country should not be compared with them. We have many important issues that needs to be discussed rather than discussing the issues of other countries. See,
no,
I've been to Iran.
No, she says Taslima said it's a symbol of oppression.
How can it be a symbol of oppression? It covers our head, not our brain. It is just a piece of cloth. A piece of cloth cannot be a symbol of oppression. How can it just a piece of cloth be a symbol of oppression? So in Iran, they have their own rules. If we don't wear the hijab, even the non-Muslims there have to wear the hijab. I've been there with the Indian karate team. The non-Muslims have to wear the hijab there. If otherwise, they will impose a fine or they may even arrest you. They have their own rules and laws, but in India, we have a constitution which gives us the freedom of choice, freedom of religion. So if a girl or woman in India wants to wear the hijab, no one has the right to stop her. It is her own choice. Also, she shouldn't be forced to wear it. In our country, the constitution gives us the right to choose whatever we want to wear.
Interesting the way you're putting it. You believe India the Constitution in itself, Article 21 in particular, which is being debated in the Supreme Court. Do you agree with that, Zakia Soman, that in India the situation is very different and therefore what is happening in Iran should not influence what happens in this country? There, women are coming out on the street protesting mandatory insistence on hijab. In India, women are calling for the constitutional right to wear hijab if they so choose.
In my view, the situation between India and Iran is very similar, and also in some ways it is very different, because hijab is not an essential practice of our religion. Hijab is a patriarchal imposition. There is any number of Quranic evidence to support this argument. Commonsensically speaking also, if hijab was mandatory for Muslim women, then all the Muslim women and all the Muslim girls all over the world would have forever been in hijab, which we all know is not the case. So it's only a recent day kind of an arrival, the hijab thing. Having said that, it is outright discriminatory to bar girls from entering the classroom, as is happening in Karnataka, because they are wearing the hijab. Because in India, everybody has a constitutional right to dressing of their choice. And it's the violation of their right to privacy. It's also a violation of their right to education, which is a fundamental right. Indian secularism also allows the citizens to practice their right to religious freedom. So as a result of that, because we are a multicultural society, we are a multi-faith society, we all follow our respective faiths. At the same time, the state is supposed to be equidistant from all religions, and that is what is Indian secularism.
No, but there is just one. But in the Indian context, there is the angle at the moment which is being debated in the Supreme Court, whether that constitutional right extends to a school or an education institute, a college. Can the college or school set their own rules? In that sense, yes, it's a very different case.
Sir, a school or a college are public places, right? So is a parliament. So is a chief ministerial office. When we have a chief minister who occupies the chief ministerial position, who is dressed in saffron robes, we have so many MPs sitting in parliament who are in saffron robes. So surely parliament is as much a public space as is a school or a college. So this is a case of discrimination. This is a case of, one more example of the ongoing onslaught on the Muslims. This is an example of the politics of religious polarization and religious divide. Even as I am certain that hijab is a patriarchal imposition and it's not at all mandatory in Islam. So what the Iranian women are doing is very bold, is very courageous. In the Indian context, some of the girls who are fighting against this imposition of a dress code, either be it imposition of hijab or be it discrimination because you are a hijabi girl. In either case, the girls are, very bold here also, and they are fighting that. So the girls are caught up between, on the one side, the parents will not allow them to go to school without hijab. On the other hand, the school is denying them entry into the classroom. They have been left out of the examination because of the hijab. So the choice here, as was discussed, choice is a very, very complex matter. When there is a social pressure defining a good woman, and a good woman is always somebody who is in a covering or a hijab, what choice does a girl who comes from a relatively conservative traditional background, what choice does she have? Because she is made to feel and she is made to understand right from childhood that you are a good girl, therefore you should be in hijab. So
let's take that issue of choice. Let's focus on that for a moment, because Saida Falak, that's precisely even what Taslima argued just now, that where is the choice? It is brainwashing. She is claiming, and this is not just true of Iran where it's mandatory, but across the world is her argument, that there are no choices here. Women are not being given free choices. The women in Iran are standing up to that. So should women across the world. Choice must be left with the woman, not with their family members, not with clerics, certainly not with society.
Nobody is being brainwashed. Hijab is compulsory in our religion. Likewise, namaz
No,
is
you're
compulsory
saying,
in our religion.
you're
We
saying,
have to
no,
offer
one
namaz,
minute,
but no
Saida.
one can force anyone to offer namaz, right?
Right.
No one can force anyone. Likewise, hijab is compulsory, but no one can force anyone to wear the hijab, and no one is forcing anyone is not forcing any girl to wear the hijab, and also they shouldn't be forced to remove it. They shouldn't be forced to choose between hijab and kidab.
No, but
Their
the
rights
fact
are
is,
being denied.
Saida, 20, 25 years ago, and this is true of Iran also before the Islamic Revolution in the 1970s, women did not wear the hijab. So if it was an essential religious practice, it seems to have only emerged in the last 20, 25 years after the rise, as some call it, of political Islam.
See, first of all, you shouldn't compare other country with other countries. And women across the globe have been wearing 100 years. So if the Muslim women believe that it is compulsory in our religion, if they believe that it maintains a modesty, then no authority have the right to stop them or say otherwise, right? We believe that it is our essential religious practice. We believe that it maintains a modesty. We believe that the hijab protects us.
But it was
is
not the
a
case
symbol
30
of
years
oppression.
ago. It
Then
was not
what-
the case 30 years ago. It seems to have emerged only in the last 10 years that you're seeing it like this.
See, let whatever the women in hijab used to wear it 30 years ago, 25 years ago, or what they are doing now, that is not the issue. In Muslim countries, from 1400 years, Muslim women are wearing hijab. From 1400 years, Muslim women have been wearing hijab. Some have not been wearing, some have been wearing, but most of the women have been wearing from the time our Prophet came and Islam came into existence.
Yeah, Zakia Soman, you want to give a final word on that? That, we've had videos being put out on social media today about what Iran was like pre the Khomeini revolution. Women were in bikinis, they were seen on beaches. Now you've got mandatory wearing of the hijab and other dress codes. Has something changed in the last 20, 25 years in particular?
Yeah, Iran has been a very refined
and indeed across the
civilization.
world.
Yes. Iran has been a very shining example of very refined civilization, and till a few decades ago, there were women at the forefront. They were scientists, they were engineers, they were doctors, they were academics. Everything changed with the Islamic Revolution of 1979. So even as there are geopolitical factors to the Islamic Revolution, and then later day, the arrival of Al-Qaeda and ISIS and all, there are geopolitical factors, and there are, events worldwide which have shaped that. But it has always turned on inwards and onto the women. And it has become a very restrictive and very kind of a binding paradigm for women. And women in hijab, women in veil, women in burqa have been made to be some kind of, like flag bearers of this kind of political Islam. So that is the problem. And in India, the women are caught up between conservatism and imposition of all these restrictive patriarchal norms on the one hand, and the politics of religious polarization on the other, as we have seen in Karnataka. So the ultimate losers are the women and the girls who are denied education, who are denied right to work, who are denied opportunities to go out freely, who are denied their mobility in the name of religion on the one hand, and because of the political onslaught on the other hand. So this is patriarchy and misogyny at work. And this is politics at work.
Right. And let me therefore ask you, Saida, one final time. If there was a woman in Hyderabad who was going around without a hijab, how would you see her today? Saida, if there was a woman who was traveling across Hyderabad,
Indian Muslim women who don't wear hijab, I don't see anything wrong.
You have no problem with them?
Yeah, there are many women in hell.
You have no problem, right? Okay, we
have our constitution, no? Our rules are different, our law is different. Of course, we have the choice to wear it or not to wear it. So no one should have a problem if a girl wears it, or if a girl doesn't wear it. Nobody should have a problem. So you would have no problem.
You would have no problem, right? You would never force her to wear a hijab. Am I correct?
Of course.
What? You would force her? If a woman does not want to wear it in
I cannot
Hyderabad,
hear
would you
you, sorry.
if a woman in Hyderabad does not want to wear it, or anywhere in India, you would never force her, right? AIMIM would not force her. Is that what you're telling me?
Of course, we don't force anyone to wear it.
Okay.
Because we have a constitution which gives us the choice.
Okay, let's leave it for that. You claim that there will be no ever mandatory, there will be no Islamic group in India who will mandatorily enforce hijab. As has been suggested by Zakia Soman, politics in a way has been tangled and women are caught in between patriarchy and misogyny, and that really is the tragedy. But the Iranian women, salute to you, because you've sent a message in a way to the world. Enough is enough. Let's take a break. On the other side is our good news today story. It comes from Kerala. Also our Get Real India story from Madhya Pradesh. You're watching the news today. News without the noise.
Hey, I noticed something new. You started using a new body lotion.
Fun.
I'm so sorry for the delay. I was on another call. It just kept going on.
No, Papa. You are in a steam bath.
Steam bath? At home?
Two steam bath he takes.
Go to your homework.
It's 7:20 already. The kickoff's in 5 minutes. Get all the boys. We have the entire place to ourselves, man. Not working?
Of course it is. But I don't want you guys to be using this bathroom. So use the other one.
Targeted in Leicester, United Kingdom, and rumours spread about a mosque having been targeted. Is there a rise in radicalism in the UK, and have authorities failed to crack down? Are Hindus in the line of fire of such radicals in UK? Join me, Gaurav Sawant, as I get you the latest on India First at 10 p.m. tonight, only on India Today.
Welcome back. Now, remember over the weekend there was the Grand Cheetah event in Madhya Pradesh Kuno National Park, where the Prime Minister received the cheetahs who had come all the way from Namibia in Africa on his birthday. The Government of India claims the return of the cheetahs will also improve the lives of the people living around the reserve in Kuno. But what is the reality? India Today's Ravish went to the ground to find out exactly how the people see it. This is Get Real India.
These visuals of our new guests at Kuno National Park in Madhya Pradesh got national coverage. But away from the flash bulbs, the villages in and around the new home of the African cheetah makes for a sorry sight. To make space for the African cheetah, many inhabitants of the park belonging to the Saharia tribe have been moved out. India Today visited Monawar, a village 10 kilometers from the national park, where some have found refuge.
गांव से वहाँ से उठा के तो यहाँ पटक दिए सर। यहाँ पे पटकने के बाद लोगों पे बिल्कुल ध्यान नहीं दिया जा रहा। यहाँ कोई मंत्री आज तक आया नहीं है। दूसरी बात, जो नेशनल पार्क बना है उसमें हमें ही जाने की अनुमति नहीं है। और हम पढ़ लिख के आज हम ग्रेजुएशन करे बैठे हैं, लेकिन वहाँ पे हमें कोई रोजगार नहीं दिया गया।
People complain that earning livelihood is a big task here.
घर गुरा चाहिए और मन्नत नौकरी चाहिए तभी पेट पाला होगा हमारा और गैर अच्छी सड़क चाहिए अच्छा शहर से बनना है यानी जंगल जाना है ना थे
The cheetah translocation project in Kuno got worldwide fame, but not the villages and the villagers living in these areas. This entire stretch is in very bad state. The villagers are requesting the local administration since long so that this entire stretch has been reevaluated and a Pakka road can be constructed.
Malnutrition and poverty are rampant in Shiopur district, where the national park is located. The Shivraj Singh Chauhan government recently informed the assembly the district alone has more than 21,000 malnourished children. The government is taking measures to check malnutrition in the region.
ये गांव है इसमें सिर्फ 1-2 है बस और ज़्यादा नहीं है।
कौन कुपोषण?
हाँ कुपोषण वाले बस।
कहाँ हैं वो?
यहाँ पर सर जो उप स्वास्थ्य केंद्र वाले हैं ना वे भी 1-2 दिन आंगनबाड़ी पे आते जाते रहते हैं तो वे खुद देखते हैं।
The villagers are hoping the entry of cheetahs into Kuno National Park will kick off the tourism in the region and provide them the jobs that have been elusive so far. With Ravish Pal Singh, Bureau Report, India Today.
The reality of the ground, that's what we do on Get Real India. Okay, let's leave you though today with a really happy story. A good ending to our bulletin today because an auto rickshaw driver in Kerala was banking on a job abroad when suddenly fortune smiled on him. This weekend, Anup won a 25 crore rupee lottery after he spent 500 rupees, bought his ticket by breaking his son's piggy bank. Fortune smiles on lots of people. I wouldn't advise you to necessarily buy a lottery ticket, but for an auto rickshaw driver, he's got the ultimate lottery. It's our good news today story. You stay well, stay safe. Good night. Shubhratri. Jai Hind. Namaskar.
A week from now, Anup was to take a flight to Malaysia where he was hoping to work as a cook. But luck smiled on this auto driver from Thiruvananthapuram. He won the biggest lottery prize money in Kerala's history in a lucky draw held on Sunday. Anup pocketed a whooping 25 crore rupees through the Kerala State Thiruvonam bumper lottery. He had bought the ticket just hours before the draw.
ഇത് ഞാൻ ലോട്ടറി എടുക്കാൻ വേണ്ടി പോയായിരുന്നു. അപ്പോൾ വൈഫ് പറഞ്ഞായിരുന്നു ഇപ്പോൾ എടുക്കണ്ട, 500 രൂപ ടിക്കറ്റ് ഇല്ല, വെറുതെ കളയാൻ, എന്ത് 40 രൂപയല്ല, വേണ്ടെന്ന് പറഞ്ഞായിരുന്നു. ശരിയെന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ് തിരിച്ചു വന്ന് പിന്നെ ഇരുന്നിട്ട് എനിക്ക് എന്തായാലും ഒരാഴ്ചക്കകത്ത് വെച്ച് പോകും. ചില ലോട്ടറി എടുക്കുന്ന ആളുകളാണ്. ഒരു ബമ്പർ എടുത്തില്ലെങ്കിൽ ഇത് വലിയൊരു ബമ്പറാണ്. ഞാൻ നോക്കിയാൽ 450 രൂപയേ ഉള്ളൂ എൽസിൽ. ഞാൻ പിന്നെ ATM പോയിട്ട് 50 രൂപ ലിച്ചിൽ വരില്ല. ഞാൻ മോൻ്റെ കൊടുക്കുകയെന്ന് അവൻ്റെ അടുത്ത് ചോദിച്ചിട്ട് തന്നെ എടുത്തത്, അവൻ തന്നെ തന്നത്. അങ്ങനെ അതെടുത്ത് നേരെ കൊണ്ടുപോയി ലോട്ടറി എടുത്തിട്ട് അതെനിക്ക് ഇഷ്ടപ്പെട്ടില്ല. കാരണം അടുത്തൊരു നല്ല ഫാൻസി നമ്പർ ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു. അങ്ങനെ ഞാൻ തിരിച്ചു വെച്ചിട്ടാണ് ഇതെടുത്തത്. ഇതെടുത്തിട്ട് നേരെ വീട്ടിൽ വന്നപ്പോഴത്തേക്ക് വൈഫ് പറഞ്ഞു പോയി 500 പോയി.
Anup's family is overjoyed.
ഇപ്പം ഒരു ലോട്ടറി 2 ലോട്ടറി ഒക്കെ ആണെങ്കിൽ നമുക്ക് കുഴപ്പമില്ല. ചില സമയത്ത് ചേട്ടാ ഇപ്പം തുടരെ ഇപ്പം ഒരു മാസമേ ഉള്ളൂ തുടരെ കുറച്ച് കൂടുതൽ ലോട്ടറി എടുക്കാൻ തുടങ്ങി. സെയിം നമ്പർ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ് 3-4 ലോട്ടറി ഒക്കെ എടുക്കുന്നത്. അപ്പം എനിക്ക് 3-4 ലോട്ടറി എടുക്കണതിനോട് താല്പര്യമൊന്നുമില്ല. ഒരു ലോട്ടറി അല്ലെങ്കിൽ 2 ലോട്ടറി അതിൽ കൂടുതൽ എടുത്താൽ എനിക്കത് ഇഷ്ടമില്ല. ചുമ്മാ പൈസ വേസ്റ്റ് ആക്കാൻ വേണ്ടി ഇത്രയും എടുക്കുന്നതെന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു.
ഇപ്പോഴും ലോട്ടറി അവ എടുക്കും. 1000 500 ഒക്കെ വെച്ച് അടിക്കും. ലോട്ടറി എടുക്കുമ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ വഴക്ക് പറയും ഇങ്ങനെ ചുമ്മാ പൈസകളെ കളഞ്ഞു എടുക്കാതെയെന്ന്. ലോട്ടറി അടിച്ചമ്മാന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ് ഓടി അവിടെ നിന്ന് പെട്ടെന്ന് ആവേറി അടിച്ച് ഓടിയെന്ന്. ഭയങ്കര സന്തോഷം. ഇതിലപ്പുറം സന്തോഷമില്ല അത്ര.
After tax deduction, Anup will get 15 crore rupees, an amount that can buy him 2 high-end Ferraris or 5 sea-facing luxury apartments on Kochi's Marine Drive. While he hasn't decided what he will do with the money, Anup is surely not moving to Malaysia. With Shibimol KG, Bureau Report, India Today.
7:20 already. The kickoff's in 5 minutes. Get all the boys. We have the entire place to ourselves, man. Not working?
Of course it is. But I don't want you guys to be using this bathroom. So use the other one.